Hello, welcome to Frank's School. 169th day of the 4th year, first video. I'm going to call this video Back to Lisbon via Tomar. There'll be two more that come before I think I speak again here from the blackboard. I think of this as Act 4 continued of the trip out of 5 acts. The first act was at Lisbon, the first 3 days or so at Lisbon. Second act was along the coast until we got to Coimbra. The third act was in the mountains. And then the fourth act was back at Coimbra and then going back to Lisbon. The fifth act will be Lisbon. Well, the video that's coming is sort of strange in a way. It's going to open. It's Friday. No, it's Saturday. It's Saturday morning. And I've tried to film. I was using my camera as much as anything to try to capture that sound. It's 2:45 in the morning, Saturday morning. It's ironic in a way that the name of the hostel was Hostel Serenata or Serenata. This may be a D, I'm not sure. A serenade, you know, you sing a serenade to somebody up in a window. Well, the sound coming out of that praça that was down there was unbelievable. The Hawklings had been telling me that. You know, they had a room that was closer to the praça. It's an open, a small, well, fairly small open area near the old cathedral, the Sé Velha. They said it is so loud. And I didn't appreciate that really, because where I was staying was on the top floor and the windows had been shut, and it was actually quite quiet up there. I hadn't really heard anything. But this night the windows were open. You know, this was a room with 3 or 4 other people sleeping in it. It was what they call a dorm, and so it wasn't, I didn't open the windows, but the windows were open. And about midnight or so I began to hear a sound the like of which I had never heard before, and I still have not heard. So many people, so loud. You know, you could say, well, what about a baseball game, you know, a professional baseball game, a professional football game in a stadium? Yeah, that's an awful lot of people, and that's awful loud. And I guess I've heard that, although I don't go to such things, but not like this, because that was a fairly small area, hard walls all around it, and it was full of students. It had been every night, but I rather think maybe Friday night was exceptional. It really, it alarmed me. I thought, what is going on down there? Is there a riot? And I lay there awake listening to that thing. Wow. It reminded me of Paris. I thought maybe that's the way Paris sounded back in 1968, because these were students down there. And I actually think it was normal, at least for a Friday night or a Saturday morning. I sleep pretty soundly for the first 5 hours or so, so maybe it had started earlier. But it seemed to me that it didn't really start until about midnight or even 1 o'clock. That's when it got its loudest. And by the time I film it, it's beginning to quiet down. I thought, the storming of the Bastille? Is that the way Paris sounded in the French Revolution, when you had that many people in the streets rioting? It was, for me, it was amazing, and I don't really capture it, but I tried. That's why it's going to open with that darkness and a shot of the clock. All right, well then we go to the day that's coming, and D.O., details of the lay of the land. As we're driving through, out of the window of the car, I very often try to film things. For studying later, I can look. I like to look at what people do with their land. Most of it is close, of course it's going by fast. The quintas, these little tiny or small holdings, you know, you can get glimpses of them. And even when we're up on the highway and you see the mountain in the distance, and in some ways that looks like a good bit like here in Pennsylvania. You know, the mountain tops are covered with trees, and then you come down and then the land is agricultural. But notice the distribution of the houses. That's different. You know, here farms tend to be big, and you have a house and a barn and then the fields all around. But there, the houses are all spread out because the holdings are small. Now that all goes by very quick. And then you'll see an animal-powered water lifting device. I don't want to call it a pump because it's not really a pump. It's at the top of a well. I went over and I filmed it in some detail because I found it so curious. Think about that poor animal walking around in a circle all the time. Probably a donkey. Note the gears. I say quote-unquote gears because in that lifting device, the gears are just sort of pegs. And I don't know if you can tell from that, but buckets would go down into the water down in the well and bring the water up and dump it. All right, well, and then now tomorrow you'll see Tomar, and then back to Lisbon. All right, bye for now.